Rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeah. Go ahead and pause The Last Jedi on your Netflix right now. It's time for Rebel Force Radio. You can watch it later. I wonder if The Last Jedi on Netflix is going to have the same kind of impact like when the Clone Wars hit Netflix. All of a sudden, it's going to stir all this stuff up again. I mean, it's only been 6 months. Believe it or not. I know a lot has happened, but it hasn't been that long. It's now on Netflix, and we've already got people saying, "Why are you talking about Last Jedi?" Jeez, what do you mean? Why are we still talking about Last Jedi? It's been 6 months. We used to have 3 years to digest these things, you know? My goodness, between trilogies, we had even longer. And I think last time I checked, we're still talking about, the first one, episode 4, and that's been 41 years. So almost 41 years now in May. So anyway, we're going to talk about it all. That's what we talk about. Star Wars in its totality here on Rebel Force Radio, this week's show for February. Where's my head at? Jeez. Friday. I tell you what. Friday, June 27th, 2018, and we're so glad to be with you. Glad you can be with us. And so much to talk about this week. It never ends. It never ends. There's always something new to talk about in the world of Star Wars. And, of course, with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, soon to be the scene of Star Wars Celebration 2019, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yes, we're back with the most positive and optimistic Star Wars podcast around. Yes, Rebel Force Radio. I actually am excited. That's not phony baloney stuff. We have a lot of cool Star Wars stuff to talk about. And yes, we will talk about The Last Jedi. Why are you still talking about The Last Jedi? We're still talking about Return of the Jedi. What do you want from us? But, of course, Last Jedi, it's only 6 months old. There's still a lot of things to be said about it. And I believe it will reach an even wider audience courtesy of Netflix. Or maybe people who just despise the film upon first seeing it will give it a second chance now that it's up there and on Netflix and easily accessible. So, hey, fingers crossed, people can wrap their heads around it a little bit. But, if we're not going to be beating up The Last Jedi, we have Solo to talk about. We have all kind of stuff to talk about. We're going to, spread the love, I think.
My Captain Zuvio figure.
What's wrong with your...
It fell over.
It fell over.
Captain Zuvio. So here's the thing,
That's
right?
more action than Captain Zuvio got in the actual film.
Oh, you're not kidding. Let me tell you. So this Captain Zuvio 6-inch black series figure... I mean, I have stared at this thing ever since. I mean, how long has it been? I mean, that thing has been on the toy shelf since 2015?
Yeah.
Is when that hit.
Right.
And I just resented the character because I thought it was such a con, and I just refused to pay full price for it. I finally picked one up. You know why I picked one up?
Because it was dirt cheap at a Toys R Us that's going out of business this week?
Bingo. Bingo. $4. $4 for the Captain's. For that price, I couldn't resist, and that was all that they really had. They had Captain Zuvio, and if you're a Patreon subscriber, and you should be a member of the Rebel Force Radio Patreon supporters, you probably heard Rush Hour this week, and we talked about my last trip to Toys R Us, and I picked up this Zuvio figure. I also picked up the BB-8 playset that converts into Snoke's starship. What is the name of Snoke's ship? I always forget that.
Snoke's ship.
What No, it's got a name.
It does have a name. That would require me to pull out a reference book here.
Yeah. Anyway, while you do that, so I picked up that playset for my son because it was a $220 playset when it first came out, and they had it for $40. And so I picked it up for him, and I handed it to him, and I said, "Son," I said, "I had the Ewok Village. You've got Snoke's ship." And he hasn't looked back since. He's just been playing with it nonstop. It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of great sound effects, and if you got the Force effects. Phase 1, by the way, or what was it? The Force Talk or Force Talk? I don't know. That thing that you wear around your wrist, it makes your action figures talk. And he's got that. He's been having just an absolute ball with that. I said, look, I've got one condition. You can have this, you can play with it, as long as you have the Emperor completely kick Snoke's butt and take his rightful place as the leader of the Empire / First Order. But anyway, what did you got a name, Jim? What is Snoke's ship?
I just found Mega Destroyer. I'm sure our special guest this week can tell us what it's actually called.
Oh, I'm sure we can. Before we bring him on, just want to give you a little bit of a rundown here. We're going to talk about so much stuff. We do have a special guest. We're also going to be talking about the future of the Star Wars standalone films. That the rumor mill is still ablaze with all kinds of thoughts, including one about the standalone films going to the small screen. We'll talk about that. Plus, Ron Howard got ambushed by our friends at TMZ. Just one question. Do you think Ron Howard will tell the TMZ reporters in George Lucas style to
Get a job.
Remember that? Remember it, George?
Get a job.
George was out after those guys? Yeah, right. So that's coming up. Plus, Forbes, those guys, they follow the money. They're talking about the Episode 9 box office already. The movie's 18 months away, and they're making predictions already. And Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson, they're still talking The Last Jedi on Twitter. And also, we got to cover it. The rumors about a exit for Kathleen Kennedy and that whole regime. I don't know. We'll see. That's just the tip of the iceberg there. But speaking real quick of Twitter. And Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson, I got to throw this. This I thought was really funny. So Rian Johnson was obviously on some sort of international flight. He was on an airplane, and he tweeted, he said, "I have decided the optimal viewing experience for The Last Jedi is on a plane 8 hours into an international flight." Mark Hamill saw the tweet and replied back, "Brilliant idea, Rian Johnson. The perfect way to prevent people from walking out."
Oh, geez. He's still launching missiles.
Hashtag The Last Jedi. Hashtag critic proof. You know what? It's really funny because you got two camps out there. You got the camp out there saying that, Mark Hamill is on our side. He didn't like The Last Jedi ever, or, he'd never liked The Last Jedi, still doesn't like it. And you got the other camp that's saying, oh, you're delusional. Mark Hamill did say he had misgivings at first, but he came around to Rian Johnson's thinking. And then Mark is just one of the best trolls, because then he throws one of these. The perfect way to prevent people from walking out. But anyway, all right. So we do have a very special guest coming back with us. This guy has been on our podcast for many, many years, going all the way back to the previous show we did. And he's a great friend and someone that we can always count on for a good time and great analysis. He's an artist. And for my money, and I'm not just saying this because he's on the show, one of the very best Star Wars artists. Because when this guy puts a piece out there, there's people that do things that are sort of, what do you say, impressionistic or whatever. But this guy is just an absolute brilliant portrait artist. He's also the owner of Norse Legion at NorseLegion.com. He's a convention panel host. You just see him everywhere. You can't help but miss the guy. He's like 9 feet tall.
You see him everywhere.
I always look up to him because I have no choice. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Lyle joining us.
The Supremacy. It's called The Supremacy.
I thought that was your nickname. That's what people call you.
It should be, but I've been sitting here in the Rebel Force waiting room for like 5 minutes screaming, "It's supremacy, damn it. Snoke's ship is the supremacy."
I knew you'd know. I tried to bring you on earlier, but Swank kept putting it off.
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know. You're right. I don't like you. I love you, and I'm so glad to have you on the show. But yeah, of course you know that because you are a Star Wars trivia expert. In fact, you're so good that you have to host these Star Wars trivia contests at various conventions. And when's the last time you did a Star Wars trivia contest, by the way?
About 2 months ago up at Empire State Comic-Con in Albany, Albany, New York.
You're still doing those. And do you come up with the questions, Kevin? Do you research and do those, or how do you come up with those questions?
I research them. I just, I watch the movies. I'm like, oh, that's a good question, and to be honest, supremacy is a good question. I'm going to put that. I'm doing a trivia contest this Saturday at a convention, Comic-Con in Connecticut, which is at Foxwoods Casino. I'm doing that this weekend. I think around 2:00 in the afternoon. We're having a Star Wars trivia contest, and I'm going to ask now, because you guys brought it up, what is the name of Snoke's ship? And that'll be probably my only Last Jedi question, I think.
Is that on purpose? Is that by design?
No. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really.
So, Kevin, you're going to be hosting the trivia event at the con on Saturday, you said, at 2 p.m.?
At Saturday, I think it's like 2 or 2:30. I'm not exactly sure on the time. You think someone like me would have checked on that, but I didn't.
All right. Is there a website for the con?
Yeah, just look up. It's called Comic Con, all one word, but with 2 N's because it's in Connecticut.
Yes.
So it's comiccon.com, and you can look it up and check it out. It's a great show. We've got Matt Wood, General Grievous, and of course the sound designer from Lucasfilm. He's been with Lucasfilm for over 20 years. And then we also have my good buddy Mark Dodson, Salacious Crumb, and he was bunch of various creatures in The Force Awakens. And so that should be a good panel. That panel's at 4:30. That one I know for sure. That's also on Saturday.
You have Matt and Mark Dodson both together at the same time?
At the same time, the two of them together.
Wow. All right. So what's the connection between these two?
They both work on Star Wars movies, dummy.
Star Wars.
Well, of course. But, I mean, is there like a, sometimes you come up with these pithy names, that kind of put the two
they're both voice actors in the thing, and then we were actually at D23 when George Lucas was inducted into the Disney Legends, and we were backstage in the green room that they set up, and Matt was there, and Mark was with me, and because North Legion was out there selling our wares, and I brought Mark to the table to kind of, I don't know, as kind of like a promotional thing, and he was there signing, and then we were backstage talking with George, and Matt walked up, and the three of us started talking, and Matt's like, hey, you know what? You should come back to Star Wars and do ADR in. Is it ADR, Jimmy? What's it called? Is it ADR?
Yes, the looping process of adding the vocal in after the performance. Right.
So Matt actually invited him right then and there.
Wow.
And he's 4 months later he came out and did the ADR for the Force Awakens.
So there you go. They've worked together. I have an idea for the convention, for the panel. Okay. We can have, and you can give these jokes to Matt. Have General Grievous tell jokes and have Salacious Crumb laugh at the jokes like Ed McMahon. So it could be kind of like the Tonight Show with General Grievous.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
I think that's a very creative idea. And I think that would go over very well.
All right. I'll ask him. And I should see Matt on Friday.
I never really thought of General Grievous as a comedian.
Oh, he tells jokes.
Does he tell?
He tells jokes. He's like, new addition to my collection. He's just kind of badgering. And he goes, I expected you to be older. I expected you to be taller. See, there's a repartee there. Okay. There's a repartee. There's a rhythm, There's a rhythm. He tells jokes all the time.
He was a funny man. Yeah.
Yeah, he taunts Kenobi. He tells all kind of. He's a humorist.
He talks smack. He definitely does. But we got an old figure because my son is really, really into Grievous. And do you remember for Revenge of the Sith they had the exploding Grievous action figure?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was real excited. I finally opened that figure. It had been sitting there since 2005, and I opened it up and it actually has gut sack explosion action. I don't know if you've ever seen this. But yeah, this thing explodes and the gut sack goes flying, and it's made out of this like clear green plastic. He just thinks it's the greatest thing ever. and he knows it's the gut sack. That's what Obi-Wan shoots, right?
Mm-hmm. I had a similar experience making a late night run to White Castle once, and I had the exploding gut sack exclusive feature.
Was it green?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was that night we went to Steak and Shake at like 2 a.m. during Celebration.
Oh, that was such a good. They had the cheesy burger there, and so I went to a Steak and Shake in my area, and I said, "Give me the cheesy burger," and they said, "We don't have the cheesy burger. You have to go to Florida Steak and Shakes for that." I was like, "What?"
Oh, that was fun. We had a late night craving for Steak and Shake, and we always have a good time. We're definitely looking forward to
a rented Dodge Charger, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's right. That was a sweet ride.
Oh, good times. Well, we'll be having good times coming in April in Chicago. It's gonna be a good time. I know, Kevin, you're going to be there.
Absolutely.
But it's been a while since we spoke, and I don't know if you know this, but there was a Star Wars movie released. What was this? About 4 weeks ago? 5 weeks ago? And I know that you've seen it,
of course.
And I'd love to get your take because, frankly, there's a shortage of people who've actually seen this movie. Certainly a shortage of people that have seen it more than once. So you went out, you saw Solo. I'm assuming you strike me as a guy that would really appreciate Han Solo as a character.
Absolutely, I love the movie. I saw it actually down in Florida. I was at a convention down there, and I was with the guys. You know, the Roxy the Rancor.
Oh yeah, that's Red Eye.
Yeah, Red Eye and Scott Will and all those guys.
Yeah, those guys are great members of the 501st.
Right, and they're awesome guys to go see a movie like this with. And of course, I was with Mark Dodson because he came down with me for that show as well. And which is kind of cool, seeing a Star Wars movie with a Star Wars actor sitting next to me. That was quite a that was quite cool. But
only if he does laugh like Salacious Crumb with all the jokes.
We had no idea if Jabba was going to be in the movie or not, and if who knows that they would just throw Salacious in there. And I was pretty sure it wasn't going to happen, but you never know.
Right.
But we I liked the movie. I thought it was very good, and I think it's. I was surprised at how poorly it did and has done at the box office, because I think it hit all the marks. It was. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as A New Hope or Return of the Jedi, but those are some of the greatest movies ever made. I think it was. I mean, I like the Avengers movies and stuff, but I thought it was better than the last Avenger movie. I thought it was a great story, and I liked how most of the characters were and stuff. Actually, all the characters. I thought all of them, but the Chaka Wookiees. Chaka was it Chaka from Land of the Lost?
Yeah, wait a minute now.
Swank said that.
Yeah, it did look like Chaka from Land of the Lost, but there was, I believe, in the visual guide. I don't have it. Do I have it down here? But Jim, do you have that visual guide handy? Because Chaka is talked about.
I got it.
And I think they reference they definitely name the character, and they do mention that he's significantly younger, and than Chewie. They say that Chewie befriended some of the younger Wookiees there. He has a name, and they do kind of explain in a way why he looks so different. From Chewbacca.
I got it. I got it right here. I got it right here.
Emaciated.
The name of it's a mine worker named Sagwa, and Sagwa fare is everywhere. Hailing from the inland tree city of Rukawaru, Sagwa. Dude.
They have a great art festival there. I love it. I go there every year.
Oh, gosh, it's wonderful there. Sagwa was taken prisoner after he attempted to defend his fellow Wookiees from Imperial patrols. Years of toil on Kessel have taken a terrible toll on Sagwa's body. Despite this, he continues to selfishly try to spare weaker slaves from the most brutal mining duties. And it says here he has balding fur from illness. And, he has to wear heavy shackles and an electro-charged slave collar. So that's messing with him a little bit. Somebody pointed out to me that he looks a lot like how Carmine Infantino depicted Chewbacca in some of those Marvel comics from the 70s.
So you're saying, like, as a human would have a receding forehead, Wookiees have receding noses. Okay. All right.
That apparently is how it goes. By the way, if you want to see something disturbing that you'll never be able to unsee in your life, just Google bald Chewbacca or bald Wookiee.
Yeah, I saw.
That is some scary stuff.
Yeah. You'll find several artistic interpretations too.
Than Chaka. So you see Solo down there in Florida, and I mean, when you saw it, Kevin, did you think at the time like, oh, okay, this is going to do really well, and I could see this having Rogue One style box office, or did you walk away thinking like, I got a bad feeling about this. I'm not quite sure how this is going to go for them.
I liked it, and the consensus of the group I was in, there was about like 7 or 8 of us. We all liked it. Everybody was positive for it. I didn't think it was as good as Rogue One. Because I think Rogue One's a great film. It's just a masterpiece. I didn't think it was as good as Rogue One, but I didn't think it would do as poor. I was surprised to see it did as poorly as it did. Even like 3 days later, when the numbers started coming in, it was quite surprising.
Well, even more surprising that opening night was considered to be a pretty strong launch, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday rolled around, and the numbers just went in the toilet.
I didn't know that, but it's just. I thought it was a good movie, and I was very surprised. And the whole, Ray Park being in it, that was a shock for me. I mean, I sat with that guy, 6 months ago at a convention. I interviewed him, and he didn't say a damn thing. He kept his mouth quiet. So I'll give him credit for that he can that Ray Park can keep a good secret.
Yeah, not even a hint. And that's really that's the tough part about this, is because that film, unlike Rogue One, where it had a very natural and definitive end. With Solo, it laid the groundwork for a lot of different fun things that we thought coming out of that movie. Those of us that saw it right in the first weekend. Oh, no, that'd be interesting. Okay, I can see them setting up some additional Solo films, spin-off here, spin-off there. It started that world-building thing, and then all of a sudden the box office came in, and bang, just like a ton of bricks or a cold shower just shut everything down, and we're kind of left with this. What might have been. That's all we've got is what might have been with this. And it's a very weird place for us as Star Wars fans. We're used to kind of having, the world is our oyster, because Star Wars defined box office for so long. Do you have any theories as to what might have gone wrong in this case?
I
don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean,
it was The Last Jedi. I think it was. I think that I think a lot of fans, and they're being called toxic fans and all this stuff. And it's just I think a lot of people walked away from The Last Jedi a little bit upset, and the movie certainly hit a chord with people in a negative way. I think I would say most Star Wars fans didn't like it. Most of my friends, and of course they're generally people who were kids in the 70s. They didn't like the movie. It just didn't do well. I know guys that have every Blu-ray of every movie and every book and every art book and all that stuff, and they're not buying any of it.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that there's a whole list of what people think is wrong with The Last Jedi, and I just for me personally, I think what happened to Luke Skywalker really, that just rubbed me the wrong way. The second he took the lightsaber and threw it over his shoulder, I was like, "What the hell am I watching?" I was quite surprised with that. And I think Rey was great, and Finn was great, and Poe was. Rey was great, and Finn was great, and it's just some there it was.
What's wrong? What was wrong with Poe in this one? I want to hear this.
Throwing in the chair and the that I didn't think that was good for the character. But when Luke came out, when Luke walked out of that bunker or whatever it is to meet the First Order, I mean, I thought that was a great scene. It was a great scene. Everybody's scared and frightened and hiding, and Luke's just like, "F this, I'm going," because this is what I do. That's the Luke Skywalker I wanted. And the fact that he wasn't there, that he was doing this thing on Ahch-To, I thought that was great. That was fantastic. and then he died. And I think that's what, and I think it's probably just me having an emotional attachment to that character, and it's
well, of course it is. I mean, of course it is. Look, I mean, this isn't Han Solo. This isn't Han Solo being played by Harrison Ford, who's had a death wish for the character since 1979. This is Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker, and Mark's enthusiasm for Star Wars. Since he came back, Jim, what convention was that? What celebration was that where he finally started to reemerge?
Right, I think it was the first celebration in the UK, the first celebration Europe.
Yeah,
and that was
when you
really
had your first interview with him.
My first interview with him was in Japan.
Oh, Japan, not UK. Okay, Japan.
Right. Yeah. So by that point, he'd been back on board. I can't remember if he was at. Was he at Celebration 4? No,
he was not.
He was. So then, and the one that followed that one was the first one in Europe. And he's been a fixture ever since.
Then in L.A. And then he went to L.A., I believe. That was the one. Or in Anaheim. Right? That was
Orlando. Orlando.
Or was that Orlando?
2 years in Orlando, 1 year in Anaheim. And with Tokyo in between.
But he was sort of estranged, to Star Wars and Star Wars fans for a while. Then he came back, and he had been such a fixture. And the idea of, what would it be like if we had if we had Luke Skywalker back? We just lost Han Solo, and we didn't think. I got to be honest. I went into that movie not thinking that they were going to do it to us again. I just they just killed off Han Solo. They're not going to kill off Luke Skywalker. Of course they're not. And they did. And, I'm with you, Kevin, in terms of, the way that they framed that whole scene at the end and the standoff with Kylo and the AT-ATs or whatever, that era version of the AT-AT, whatever, I thought was so great. And but then, we were so close to having it all. And then, as quick as it came, it was over. And it made a lot of sense, I guess, at the time when they thought that they could hang their hat on, Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia in Episode 9. But with that opportunity lost, it was a big gamble. It was a big risk. We'd waited 40 years to see Luke Skywalker back in action. And, it wasn't quite the Luke Skywalker that people wanted. And I heard someone say, and I wish I could credit who this was, but they really did sum up my feelings, my personal feelings about The Last Jedi. And they said, I really liked the movie. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's a really good movie, but it was a mistake. And I know that sounds kind of heavy, and I don't mean to disparage people who really, really like the movie, because I myself do like the movie, but I'm such of two minds about it. I can separate myself in the sense of, being someone who appreciates, the film and the craft and the work that went into the movie and the bold choices that were made, versus the one that, now looking back at it and looking at what they have in the road ahead, thinking that the choices that they made were a mistake, if that makes sense. Can you appreciate something, Jim, can you appreciate something on the one hand and also feel that maybe it wasn't the best choice on the other?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's when you take the approach that I try to take, and that's analyzing and dissecting the Star Wars that's put in front of us, as opposed to saying, well, they should have done this, they should have done that, etc. But I can look at it from a different direction, of course, and say, how come you didn't give us a Luke Skywalker that was truly heroic and was involved in a kick-ass lightsaber duel and was a unifying force in a very obvious way? And I would have liked to have seen, if we were being presented with this Luke Skywalker who was so downtrodden and so beaten and so broken, I would have liked to have seen how he got there, because we know how Luke Skywalker developed as a character and as a person in the original Star Wars trilogy. But then to have this Luke Skywalker who is very foreign to that character that we've known and cultivated for the last 4 decades to present us with something that's totally different without taking us along the storytelling journey to see how he got there is hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, I think. And it could be considered, a missed opportunity.
There's one little ray of sunshine in this, and I wonder if you guys noticed it. Is when Luke disappears, his arm disappears too, and it shouldn't have if he died a la Darth Vader or a la Obi-Wan Kenobi, leaving behind everything that's not organic. And he took it. His arm didn't clank to the table, didn't clank on that rock, and it should have. And I'm wondering if I don't know. Is that maybe he's not dead, or am I just grasping at straws?
Well, I don't think you're. I think everything is on the table. I mean,
yes.
Imagine you're J.J. Abrams, and you've got to somehow reunite Star Wars fandom that has been split by this film, and I think that I've thought about it. I mean, if you're J.J. and you're charged with this task, you got to be thinking about that. But we there's no precedent for it that I'm aware of, and that's not to say that it can't happen. But if he's not dead, if he didn't, become one with the Force, where is he? Or is he a different type of Force ghost? Is he a Force ghost, that could be more corporeal? Or is he a Force ghost that could be so powerful that he chooses to come back to, the world of the living? I don't know. But I know one thing's for sure. We haven't seen the last of Luke Skywalker. There's no possible way.
Oh, I agree. There's nothing about it. He'll be in it. And he's been coy with it, like, he doesn't know if he's back or not. Of course he's going to be in it. There's no question about that. Whether he's going to be a Force ghost, is he going to come back and rematerialize on Ahch-To and then take his X-Wing, which is there, and fly his X-Wing back to meet with the Resistance, get together with Billy D. Williams and take on Kylo Ren.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta wonder. I mean, what trick could they have up their sleeve? And I mean, anything is possible. I don't envy the position that JJ's in, but I do think that he's equipped. He's definitely equipped to do the job, and to perhaps create some harmony there. But what do you guys make of this? We in some ways we've known for a long time. Mark Hamill was very upfront from the first time he started talking about episode 7 all the way through 8 this is the passing of the torch. This is about a new generation of characters coming up and taking on the mantle and moving forward, moving the story forward. Are we just clinging on to the past, or is there something to be said for preserving these legacy characters for a little while longer? Or is this just the natural order of things, Kevin? I mean, do you think that it was too much too soon after getting rid of Han Solo, and then with Carrie Fisher's passing, which they couldn't possibly know at the time? What do you think the right prescription is if they're wanting to pass this on to a new generation?
Yeah, and I think, and it's been said before, that the first sequel trilogy movie was Han's movie, and then the last one was Luke's movie, and the next one was going to be Princess Leia's movie. That's obviously not going to happen. They had a year to plan for it. They had a year to go back and change things, and they stuck to their original plan, I guess, and didn't change anything. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I've heard, they didn't change a single thing because of Carrie Fisher passing away.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And there was, of course, a lot of speculation. We knew that was, and I can't remember who originally said that, but that was a quote that was passed around, is that episode 7 was Han's movie, episode 8 was going to be Luke's movie, and then 9 was going to be Leia's film. Do you think it was always by design, Jim, that they were going to just knock off these characters one at a time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I do. Absolutely, I do. I think they wanted to change the narrative from discussion of the Chosen One being Anakin or Luke to having it solidified that the Chosen One was Leia. I think that's where this all was heading. But we'll never see that now, obviously, because of the fact that Carrie's not around anymore. I just think that by design, that's where this trilogy was heading.
So that was going to settle this question once and for all of what the Chosen One means and who that actually is.
I have a theory about the Chosen One. And
let's hear it.
That's with The Last Jedi, where Rey is in that cave, that underwater grotto, and she's like, I want to know who my parents are. And she sees this vision behind the glass wall, whatever that was, ice or glass or whatever. And she sees two people coming together, presumably a mother and a father. And as they come closer, they merge into an image of her, that she is her own parent, that the midichlorians, manifested themselves and created life. Just like they did with Anakin, they did with her. So I'm pretty sure she's a chosen one.
Yeah, so I'm on board with that. I'm on board with that much more than her parents being drunks who were buried in the desert.
Well, they might have been. They could have been anybody.
Well, right. I get that.
Anakin's mother was a slave.
Right.
She was the lowest rung you could think of, and so were these people. They're what were they? Junk dealers that were alcoholics.
Junkers, yes. Junkers. And they sold her for
drinking money.
For a case of Olympia. They still make Olympia? I don't think so. But yeah, I've speculated. I've definitely speculated in a similar direction to you, Kevin, on this show a few times as far as that goes. Because I think that's like the only way out at this point. They're not going to say, well, your parents really are Han Solo and Kira. No, that's not going to happen. That's so not going to happen.
Well, especially not now.
Your parents are Ahsoka and Lux Bonteri. No, they're not going to tie in the animated series in any way. It's not going to happen. Remember that Star Wars Donnie and Marie episode? Well, you are the spawn of Donnie and Marie. No!
It's impossible!
How did we get here?
I don't know how he got here, but I do look, because I was talking to my wife about this earlier this week, because she really liked The Last Jedi. She's like, why do you think people are so upset about it? She goes, I thought it was a great movie. And I said, well, I understand. I said, but it seems very disconnected from The Force Awakens. I mean, you look at the big threads that were left for Rian Johnson to fill in. You got Rey's parents, you got Snoke's origin, you got what happened to Luke Skywalker, and all three of those were sort of answered in a as what Rian Johnson talked about, a very contrarian way, in a way that he felt would be the most difficult for the character to deal with. But at the same time, it was also the most difficult for the fan to deal with as well. And when you kind of hit all three of those in that same note, Snoke, too bad you're not going to find out. Well, Luke actually is, going back on everything that he ever believed in. And Rey, her parents and her lineage don't matter at all. They were just nobody. They were a bunch of drunks. So you wasted the last 2 years of your life speculating. It was just a little bit too much. I mean, again, on the one hand, I sort of applaud the nature of Rian Johnson in the sense that he thought, well, I'm going to do not what the fans necessarily want or even what I want as a fan, but I'm going to do what's the most challenging for the character. But you add it all up, and it, perhaps it was just too much the other way. It was too much the other way. But we got one more movie to sort of solve this and wrap it up in a way that's satisfying and unifying. And based on the stories that we're getting, there's a lot of pressure on JJ, not just from fans, but also from the brass at Disney. They're looking for, someone to come in and clean this up. And I got to tell you guys, I go back, and I don't want to be all conspiracy theorist, but I actually believe that at one time JJ was going to be the guy that was going to shepherd this whole trilogy. And I remember there being rumors and talk about there being a lot of difficulty between the Bad Robot crew and the Lucasfilm crew. and there was a lot of friction. And JJ is a control freak. We know that licensees had difficulty getting images and clearance for various things for The Force Awakens. There's just so much of that kind of thing going on that I feel like the rest of the trilogy was sort of taken from JJ, maybe involuntarily, and so they kind of created this sort of telephone game of I'm going to start telling the story, then I'm going to pass the baton to you, and then you're going to tell the story, and then pass the baton to someone else, and they're going to tell the story, and they're not going to have the benefit of having seen the film before they start telling the story, and this whole thing just sort of, I don't know, if you're going to tell a consolidated story over 3 parts, you would think that they'd all be together on this. I mean, I remember going to celebrations where they would have the authors for tie-in material in the old expanded universe days, where they would all get together and break stories, as a group, and then divvy it out and separate these books. But there was some, synergy going on amongst them. It didn't seem like any of that was going on.
Well, this is true. What you just said is absolutely true. There hasn't been.
But if it's true, how is JJ back in the good graces with Lucasfilm?
He's our only hope. He's their only hope, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think they backed a Brinks truck into his driveway. I mean, really, that explains why, But yeah, I'm hoping that JJ will find the same magic he had with The Force Awakens and be able to, put a nice tight bow on this little thing and, wrap it all up. I think that everyone should withhold judgment on The Last Jedi until we've seen this entire trilogy all together. Certainly, The Empire Strikes Back was not as beloved as it is nowadays during the actual original trilogy era. It was kind of a bummer, it was open-ended. The heroes were beaten down. Luke lost his hand. We found out that Vader was Luke's father. Han Solo was frozen in carbonite. Never knew if we'd see him again. It was a real bummer. And
if I can, I'd have to disagree with that because it was the second highest grossing movie of all time.
Oh, we loved it. Hey, don't get me wrong. We loved it.
Great.
We loved it.
I thought it was fantastic back then when I was 8 years old when it came out. I mean, a lot of people are saying, like, oh, it's the second, it's the favorite now, but it wasn't before. And I've never prescribed to that belief. I thought it was a great movie, and I think everyone I know thought it was a great movie right when it came out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
We all loved Star Wars, but I'm just saying that it didn't stand on its own like it did afterwards as the classic that people look back at it and think about it. I think back then the general consensus was that it was a great film, but I think everyone felt like the original Star Wars was really, truly the classic. And Empire had a lot to live up to. And it did. It was great. The special effects were better. It was better drama. The characters were more fleshed out. And there was more on the line. The risks were higher. It has everything that makes a great movie great, but it was open-ended. And I don't think it was fully appreciated until the trilogy, the original trilogy, was looked at as a whole. And you were then able to pick out, hey, The Empire Strikes Back really propelled this thing into the next dimension. I agree with that. I'm always nostalgic for the original Star Wars, A New Hope, because it was so groundbreaking and it was an instant classic. And it is a nice, tight little package that totally stands on its own. And I think it stands up there and deserves to stand up there with the all-time great American film classics, like The Wizard of Oz, like Casablanca. I think it has that sort of stature as far as a groundbreaking classic film. But really, when you do look at the original trilogy, you see how important The Empire Strikes Back is at propelling the entire saga. That's a creepy-looking Wookiee from Solo. Saga. I said the saga was... No, the saga... It really enriched the entire saga on a whole, probably more than any other single chapter before or after it. So that's how I feel. But I think The Last Jedi is going to benefit from that? Probably not. But I think it will benefit from having its place as the middle chapter, depending on how effective JJ is with 9.
The bottom line, and Kevin nailed it, and I don't think that it's any secret, the bottom line is that most of the dissatisfaction, most of the buyer's remorse when it comes to The Last Jedi has to deal with Luke Skywalker. It's not about Finn, it's not about Rey, it's not about Rose, it's not about Poe or Haldo or Akbar or any of that. It's that stuff is ancillary. It's about Luke. And a lot of the frustration is that, again, we waited 40 years. We had all this time to anticipate, what it would be like to have Luke Skywalker back in action. And, it was disappointing. And that's, again, that is by design. I mean, the whole idea was that Rey, what would be the worst possible, Rian Johnson was very clear in the director's commentary. What would be the worst possible thing to happen to Rey? Well, it would be that she finds out that her hero is not what she would hope he was, and that she was not, descendant of some, important people. It was all about what was going to be the most challenging for the character, and therefore what would be the most challenging for the audience, and therefore what would be the most compelling. But as I say, it just seemed, almost kind of looking back a little ham-fisted, because there is an aspect of this that we want to sort of, be satisfied as an audience and give us throw us a little bone. And perhaps, the final battle there with, Luke projecting himself, that was the bone that was thrown to us. But they got one more shot at this to kind of bring it back and sort of, unite the family back together again. Good luck, JJ, in figuring that out. I'm sure that, that he's a talented guy, and I think if anybody can do it, he probably can. But Luke is the center of this. He is critical to this. They have to do right by Luke. And, it may be that they have to kind of reverse some of what's happened in this movie. We'll see. Now, Kevin, before we wrap up things with you, we do want to kind of see what's going on in your world, Norse Legion. You can check it out, NorseLegion.com. This is the man that brought you the fabulous Guinness T-shirt. So if you're a fan of Alec Guinness or Guinness the beer.
Yeah,
you can check that out. Popular. It's enormously popular. It's so clever, and you can get it as a. I know you can get it as a T-shirt. I don't know if the glasses are the beer glasses are still available.
Oh, the wine glass is still available. You can check it out on our Facebook page too. That's where most of our. That's where most of the people who are interested in those things they buy more through our Facebook page than our website. So
I like to call you a serial entrepreneur, because you're multifaceted. You're an artist. You also have, Norse Legion, and you just do all kinds of you rep talent and bring them out to conventions and all that stuff. So tell us. And
I'm working with Pozu too, which is the British-based shoe company that has the Star Wars shoe license. I'm working with them as well.
Now, are they the ones that are? Are they doing like sort of the hybrid, like they look kind of like boots plus they're
exactly they
shoe?
do.
Yeah,
they have these great boots that are like they're right off the set. They look fantastic. And
so
then
they got Rey's boots. I think they've done Rey. They
did Luke's. They've done Rey's. They've done Poe's. They've done Finn's. But they also have these great high tops with like Millennium Falcons on them, or they have this really cool one with the porgs on them that my daughter loves because she's a big Porg fan. Michaela is just the biggest Porg fan you'll ever. She's got every Porg thing you can imagine, and she loves The Last Jedi. She thinks it's the greatest film ever made.
I've seen those high tops too. I've seen those high tops. They remind me of the old Chuck Taylors. They're nice looking shoes.
Yeah, and then they got a Kylo Ren one. They got an R2D2 one that I'm working on. They got a bunch.
So you did the design work for those?
No, I haven't any no design work as of what they have right now. I'm hoping to do some future stuff with them, but but they're they're all previously designed items that they have right now.
Well, Kevin, we love the stuff you do with Norse Legion, and we'd really like to spread the word about it. So you've been generous enough to donate 20 pins that you've designed for the releases of Rogue One and Solo.
Right.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about these pins.
Well, one pin is the TIE Striker from Rogue One, and the other one is our design with the Solo logo and the Millennium Falcon for the con premiere of Solo. And I'm going to offer 10 of each to any Rebel Force Radio viewer who what's the word? Listener. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You yelled at me last time for calling them viewers.
Well, they'd be yelling at us if they had to look at us. So
that's true.
And so Jimmy and I were talking earlier. What we're going to do is, I guess, like and share the Norse Legion page.
Yeah.
And I will randomly pick 10 people to win 2 pins each. They'll each win the TIE Striker pin and the Falcon pin.
Okay, so 10 winners will get one of each pin. All you have to do is like and share the Norse Legion Facebook page between now and July 5th. And then Kevin will randomly pick 20 people to win, and you'll announce the winners on the Norse Legion Facebook page, and then you'll pass them along to us, and we can congratulate them here on Rebel Force Radio.
Okay. And should I get the addresses and so forth for them, or will you do that?
You can do that.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yep, it's all you.
And by the way, these are not buttons. I mean, these are enamel pins. These are, Kevin, you know more than I do about how to describe the way that these are made. But I mean, these are
they're steel. They're steel and enamel pins. The color. Yeah. The color generally is done with steel. The Falcon one is a brass, a metal brass one with black enamel, and it's I'm really proud of that one. That one's one of my favorite ones.
That's beautiful. And those were given out. Those were given out at the premiere in Con.
They were given out at Con. Yeah.
Con, whatever.
Con.
Jimmy,
you don't say Con?
No. That's Star Trek talk. Something else J.J. Abrams lies about.
So you're saying Cannes?
Yeah, Cannes Film Festival. Absolutely.
And it's from what, a country called
France? Yes.
But they say France.
Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the Cannes Film Festival. And I learned how to pronounce it directly from Roger Ebert, the late, great Roger Ebert himself.
Well,
told
he would
me
know
the
better
proper
than me.
way to say that. Yes.
He would know much better than I.
Wait a minute. Wait. Roger said Cannes?
Cannes Film Festival, yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Abso-freaking-lutely. So, Kevin, thanks so much. Hey, you know what? Before we let Kevin go, I want to turn the Wayback Machine to back to one of Kevin's very first ever appearances on our show, and that's when Kevin appeared on the first season of AMC's Comic Book Men. Do you remember that, Kevin? Of course you do.
Yes, I do.
And so we got word over the weekend that AMC, after 96 episodes over 7 seasons, AMC has decided against renewing for an 8th season. So the unscripted reality show shot at Kevin Smith's comic book shop in Red Bank, New Jersey, Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, is no more. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. You, of course, did appear on the show. Jason, do we have a clip?
We do have a clip. Here's
Christ.
one.
Oh, God.
This is Kevin on Comic Book Men.
Hey.
Hi, looking for Walt?
I'm Walt.
Hey, Walt. Keith.
Keith. Hey, man. How you doing?
Good.
Kev, this is the guy I was telling you about. This is why I called you in.
How you doing, Keith? Kevin Lyle.
Hey, Kevin. Nice to meet you.
Got a call from a guy who wanted to verify if he had an authentic Star Wars, a prop.
Okay.
I told him, and we would never be able to authenticate it. So I had to call in a Star Wars expert.
You could rock some authentication.
Right.
So, what you got here?
I brought you my prized possession.
Prized possession?
Yep. This is my lightsaber hilt.
All right, can you tell me a little bit about it? You got it where was the shop?
It was Ann Arbor, Michigan. The owner got it from an auction, and it was in the store one day before I bought it. It's been on my shelf for 15 years easily.
Okay, Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's a far away from, I believe, then London, but...
Is that where it was made, London?
Well, they were made in England, but it was filmed in London. You say this was in A New Hope?
Yeah, supposedly it was from the first film, yes. I paused
Are you
the
going to
movie,
play the
like,
whole
time
thing?
and time again, just staring at the bottom of this thing to make sure I had the right amount of rubber pieces and that the bottom of it looked correct and the right bolt pattern and everything else.
All right, so I believe you can find the show, the whole series. Is it on Netflix or Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
It's on Netflix. Okay, so you can go back. This is season 1, and this is Kevin's appearance. And so the guy comes in, and he brings in what he believes is an actual prop, screen-used prop of the Skywalker lightsaber from A New Hope. And Kevin was brought in as the guy that's going to authenticate it. And Kevin, you come in, you look at this thing, you talk to the guy. I forget how it ended up. What was were you able to validate?
I'll be honest with you. It ended, and Jimmy, get ready to bleep this out. It ended in a bunch of bullshit. Is what it ended in.
Ooh.
It was. It's not a Gray Flex lightsaber hilt at all, and it was really well done. And my question was, is this a stunt version? Because it's not the real one, and they cut that part out. And, at the end of the thing, I talked to them because I actually filmed the second episode with them, and with a painting of a stormtrooper that I did. And I talked to them about it, like, well, it's Hollywood, and this is what we do, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't make any fuss about it. But I was a little ticked off when I saw it. And
it doesn't help your credibility much, does it?
So wait a minute, wait, Kevin.
No, thank you very
saying...
much for bringing that up.
Well, I mean, so they were basically asking you to authenticate something that you knew was a fraud.
No, but and if you watch the clip, I actually say that this is not the one that he was like wielding with the lightsaber blade and all that. I said, it could be like a stunt one or something. They make ones that he wears for like when he does like the little loop, when he goes with Carrie Fisher and the chasm and stuff like that. You're not going to have the close up version, and I think they put part of what I said in there, but they did edit it in a way to make it look like I said that it was real, and it wasn't. And the fact that the show's canceled now, I can say it publicly.
Okay, there you go. So we heard it here. You don't believe that was a real lightsaber?
I would bet my life on it that it wasn't a real lightsaber.
Okay, all right. But the guy thought it was, and he paid that kind of money for it, obviously.
No, I think, do you know what happened? Oh, my God. Afterwards, I'm talking to him, and I say, and I said that if it's not real, it was made by, there's probably like maybe 300 people in this country, like 1 in a million, that can actually work on something like this level of design. I certainly couldn't do it, and I've been an artist for 20 years. And I asked him what he did for a living. He said he was a specialized jewelry designer. And I'm like, and he works with metals and stuff like that. Are you kidding me? I'm like, you made this freaking thing, didn't you? He didn't admit to it, but I thought he was a little bit of I was a little bit ticked off about that. But but it was fun. It was cool to do it. When we did do it, you wear like a microphone, and the idea was that I was going to come back in a week and do another episode. And then maybe if it were worked out, maybe do some other stuff. But so they give me this mic pack. Jim, you'd be more familiar with this kind of stuff. And it goes on my back and it clips on and it has a mic that goes through my shirt. And it really said very nicely. It said Kevin on it, printed on there really nicely. Like it was made in a factory like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, man, you guys made one for me. They're like, relax, it's Kevin Smith's. They just gave it to me because it was simple, and so they can keep an eye on it. But do you know the guy who, in Clerks, the guy who, how do I say this? I guess he was an ex-boyfriend of Dante's girlfriend, and there was a whole fight about that. Do you remember that scene?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The guy who he's all, hey, how you doing, man? How you doing? Hey, everything's great. That guy, he was the cameraman for that show. And he's like the assistant director, and he's the cameraman for that show. And if you watch the episode, if you know the movie, you know why I'm being coy about it, because that gets really kind of dirty. And but with a funny thing to add to that, Brian O'Halloran, who played Dante in that movie, he's going to be at Comic-Con this weekend, and I'm interviewing him as well.
Oh, great!
It all comes full circle. You're going to be at Comic-Con. You can go to the website Comic-Con, that's with 2 N's, so COMICCONN.com, and that is at the fabulous Fox Casino, right?
Foxwood Resort Casino.
Foxwood Resort Casino. And so Kevin will be there this coming weekend. So if you're going to be in the area, make sure you check it out, Foxconn. And you've got Matthew Wood there. You also have Salacious Crumb there, Mark Dodson. And you're going to be doing some Star Wars trivia on Saturday. And so hopefully you can run some tape on that. We'd love to
we
hear
are going to record it for you guys, and I'm going to obviously give you guys a plug about it. But Jim and Jason, maybe we could do the same thing we did last time. If your fans, your listeners can send in some questions, they can either send it to me on Facebook, or you know what, everybody, bother Jimmy Mack. Send Jimmy Mack questions, and on his Facebook page.
No, actually, they can just send them to show@rebelforceradio.com. So go to send an email, show@rebelforceradio.com, and put in the subject line, Kevin questions.
Yes.
Kevin questions, and we'll make sure we forward those to Kevin, and he'll have them.
And as always, if I read your question, I'll give you a shout out. Usually, I usually can't pronounce the name right, but
oh, that's all right. That's all right.
But I'll do the best I can.
No, you're always great about that, and we've heard back from listeners who've been thrilled to hear you give them a shout out at various conventions across the East Coast. So keep doing what you're doing. We still consider you to be a top expert on all Star Wars props, regardless of what the comic book shop men think. But it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Kevin.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Sure is. All right. Kevin Lyle, ladies and gentlemen, you can check him out, NorseLegion.com. He's also on Facebook, and truly he's got some of the best Star Wars art out there because it actually looks exactly like the person that he's painting. He's ridiculously talented. Also, by the way, I should add a veteran of the armed forces, and we thank him for his service.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. I think that's something, I don't know that we've ever mentioned that. And you served proudly and very honorably. And I, for one, thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Especially with the 4th of July coming up next week. We salute you, Kevin Lyle, and to anyone listening to the show who's served in the United States Armed Forces.
All right, man. We'll catch up with you soon. Thank you so much. Enjoy the remnant, the last of your stogie there on your friend's porch.
On my friend's porch. I have my own porch.
Oh, I thought you said you were at a friend's house. I'm sorry.
No, I said my front porch, not a friend's.
Your front porch, not okay. All right, man. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
The most important thing about lightsabers is obviously their construction and what they came from. They came from what was called a gray flex flash handle.
So you're telling me photographers would use these?
This would be used for a photographer, exactly. They actually held the flash. It'd be on a pole, and the flash would be up here. The production team actually went out to different antique shops throughout England and started buying these things up. But basically, all the pieces in the world like this are going to be found in a lightsaber because Lucas went out and bought every single one of them that they could possibly get.
How do you know that?
Because I'm a Star Wars geek.
Ah, yes, the great Kevin Lyle. Thanks so much, Kevin, for jumping on the show. You know, I really look forward to my trips to New York City because Kevin lives in Connecticut, and it's just a train ride over to the city, and we always try to hook up, and we hooked up last time we were I was in New York, and we toked on some stogies and had a few drinks and a few laughs, told a few lies, stuff we do.
Kevin's always a good guy,
dude.
and his Star Wars analysis is pretty much as spot on as his artwork. And I also enjoyed hearing some behind-the-scenes stories from comic book men. I think we surprised him with that.
Yeah, I think we did. I got to confess, I didn't know that the show ran that long.
Yeah,
I think I lost interest after that first season. But so Kevin Smith's comic book shop there, and where is that? New Jersey?
Red Bank, New Jersey. Yeah.
By the way, how is Kevin Smith doing these days? I know he had some heart trouble there a couple months ago. I confess, I haven't really seen much of an update. I'm assuming he's on the rebound.
Yeah, it seems like he's doing okay. He's definitely working. I have not listened to any of his podcasts recently. I used to be hooked on Hollywood Babylon, But I haven't listened to that lately. I hope he's still putting those out there. But yeah, I should try to catch up on Kevin Smith and see how he's doing. He seems like he's fully recovered, and he probably has shed a few pounds along the way and is feeling much better, despite, the scary circumstance he went through a few months ago.
Sure.
I've always liked the guy. Always a real nice guy. I've met him a few times. Of course, we sat with one of his associates, J.C. Reifenberg, from the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood. Old friend of ours.
Yeah, JC's one of the good guys, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he's been working with Kevin Smith for a long time, and so maybe we should check in with JC, and he can fill us in on how Kevin's doing.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked to JC, actually.
Sure has
been. Talked to him since Solo, and the Scum and Villainy Cantina, I believe, is still, it was, a pop-up. It was meant to be temporary, but I believe it's still going strong.
Oh, yeah, it's become a fixture now. It's become a fixture in the Hollywood area. So if you're out there, be sure to stop by. I'm actually heading out there next month. I might pop my head in there for a cold one.
There you go. Yeah. And don't forget about the Norse Legion giveaway. Kevin Lyle has graciously agreed to give away a couple of about 10 different sets of pins. And these are pins that were only available at various events. So you got to go to the Norse Legion Facebook page, like that page between now and July 5th, and Kevin will pick 10 winners, and you'll each get a pair of pins, one from the Rogue One premiere and one from the Solo premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. And before we go any further, we do want to check in with our voicemail. So
before we do that. What? I'm telling you, I don't want to go further with this show until we get a real jolt of positivity, okay?
Okay.
That's what we've been needing for like the last few weeks, is a big jolt of positivity. And it came to me in the form of an MP3 sent to show@rebelforceradio.com.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that we have an incredibly talented audience of loyal Rebel Force Radio listeners, we put the call out earlier this year for any musicians who have access to recording equipment to put together a song for us for Rebel Force Radio that we could play as a transition piece, and we received a lot of great stuff. But I got one recently from listener Jeff Ulickney, and he put together a song parody of Wall of Voodoo's 1982 hit Mexican Radio, switched around the lyrics. This is Rebel Force Radio, a brand new RFR jingle from Jeff Ulickney. Check this out.
I touch the icon on my smartphone. I want a podcast for my drive home. Something about my favorite movie. Something that leaves me feeling groovy. I scroll the list and I check the titles. I want some new stuff from my idols. I see a new one and I hit play. I'm in a galaxy far, far away. I'm on a Rebel Force radio. 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 I wish I was in Chakadana, having drinks with a Maz Kanata, or maybe Scarif on the beaches, in the galaxy's far off reaches, or maybe Endor with the Ewoks, or in a space slug full of Minox. Let's talk some Star Wars, take me away.
hear one no longer.
Just what does he say? I'm on a Rebel Force radio. I'm on a Rebel Force, radio. I'm on a Rebel Force radio. I'm on a Rebel Force, radio. What does he say? What does he say?
Hey there, Jimmy. Hi there, Jason. It's Rob here from the UK. Medium-term listener, first-time caller. Just wanted to drop you guys a line about various events the last month or so. Firstly, many thanks for the great content you've put out. The amount of work and dedication to this and to the podcast is phenomenal, especially in the face of the last 2 weeks. Can't lie, it's been a challenge listening to all the negativity around the Star Wars community, both from those who call themselves Star Wars fans, but also from Disney and Lucasfilm themselves. The impact it seems to have had across the whole community. I'm trying not to let it get to me or get involved. I'd say the only view that I do have at the moment is that I think Disney are trying to do too much with too little resources. Dropping at least 4 major franchise films across Star Wars and Marvel, plus animated content, plus planning numerous TV shows. On top of that, park redevelopments. It's all a massive undertaking. I've been thinking about the last time this amount of content has dropped in a year, and if there are any casualties, especially at the cinema. I mean, I know for me personally it costs around £50, about $66 per cinema trip for the family to go and see a film or a movie these days. That's quite an amount to find lying around to go and see multiple films a month.
Boom.
It is a lot to find. I do love that it's been what they've done, though, with Marvel and Star Wars. I think it's the right decision at the moment just to dial back and rethink the schedules, certainly around the releases of the movies. Anyway, great show with John Marco the other week with looking at the mythological blueprint of Solo. It was a good shot of positivity around content and shows what a great story foundation Solo was built upon and how good a film it is. This brings me to a couple of Solo observations to close. Definitely sensed a shift dramatically with Han's outlook when he stepped off the ship, leaving Kira behind, and went with the final showdown with Beckett. The optimism that he had seemed to take a back seat, and we find that we meet the cynic that we see in the cantina taking hold. Finally, with Beckett, when that shot happened, the setup to me was such that it felt like Han shot first. Not sure if I'm reading anything into this, but I'm wondering if someone was having a dig at the special editions. Did you interpret it this way, or am I just seeing things that aren't there?
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, thanks for keeping it real, for the work that you do, and for the great podcast. May the force be with you all. Cheers. Bye.
When I said I don't think so, I mean, I don't think he's seeing things. I think that was sort of a little passive-aggressive commentary on the special edition. And I can't say that I disagree with seeing Han be cold-hearted when he has to be. I mean,
it was such a. I know it's become a cliche now, and it's become one of those sort of punchlines about how nerdy we can be about certain things in the universe. But that was such a indicator of who Han was. It was such a moment. I remember the first time I saw that. Yes, I bet you have. Bang! I mean, just he didn't think twice.
Right.
He was out of there. He knew what he was up against, and he knew that was the only chance that he had. He had to take the guy out. And I don't, for the life of me, I just don't know why that was sort of whitewashed and kind of, I don't get it. George is he talked about dewbacks. He talked about cleaning up the some of the matte lines in the snow speeders and the cockpits. He talked about why he wanted to add various things in Return of the Jedi, the blinking Ewoks, and all this stuff through the years. He never spoke openly about the Han shot first that I'm aware of.
I had assumed that he had made that move because he was father of very young children. And when you have little kids, you lie to yourself and you think you can single-handedly make the world a better place for them. But you're just like a dog chasing his tail at the end of the day. It's best, to, I think, expose your kids to the real world. But, of course, you still want to maintain their innocence and naivete throughout those wonder years. That's what it's all about. So I think, as a parent, I think George was considering his young kids looking up to a guy who will shoot someone under the table in the proud tradition of the American Western. But
exactly.
Here I am, hearing my own words echo back in my head before Solo was released, before we actually saw the film. And I'm whining about my fear that they could potentially wussify, my own words, wussify Han Solo. Meanwhile, we've already seen the wussification of Han Solo at the hands of George Lucas in 1997. So it's refreshing to know that a film that comes out in 2018 from the Disney Corporation can actually add an edge back to the character that should have never been taken away in the first place.
Yeah. It sure did. And that is sort of again, one of the great ironies of this poor performer at the box office is that it does, in many ways, answer some of the critics of the Disney era of Star Wars, and I think created a Han Solo or provided a Han Solo that was very much in line with the scoundrel, the rogue that we grew up with and loved, and it's weird. It is a weird thing. But Kevin, we just had him on earlier. He seems to think that people stayed away as a result of feeling somewhat betrayed or disappointed by The Last Jedi, and you couple it with bad PR. You couple it with marketing that was. I was thinking about that. It's like. They just assumed that they had all the Star Wars fans hook, line, and sinker. So let's spend a bunch of money and get Chewbacca there in the, at the NBA Finals. Let's, they did a lot of stunt marketing and some things that just kind of, belied the traditional, perhaps more prudent methods of getting the story of your movie out there. And Jim, we mentioned on our Patreon exclusive show, Rush Hour, the fact that the merchandise out there on the shelves, on the product shelves, missed what we feel is a golden opportunity to get the film title out there. The Solo merchandise itself very seldom had that Solo logo on it.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, I did finally pick up my Chewbacca from Solo. I have it right in front of me. And it's hard to believe that here it is like a month after the film has finally been released. I now am getting the Chewbacca figure. And I still don't have a Han.
Yep.
But I have him standing here with Bodhi Rook just to clash timelines. No, it's not really clashing timelines.
Yeah, not too much.
Not at all, really. But clashing canon for sure.
Yeah.
Unless this is an untold chapter of Bodhi and Chewie's career. The Bodhi and Chewie Chronicles.
Yeah, Chewie gets around. I mean, he's hanging out with Ben at Mos Eisley Cantina. He's hanging with Yoda there on Kashyyyk during the Clone Wars. Then he shows up with Han Solo there on Mimban.
And I hope they can find a way to include him in future Star Wars films, regardless if they're standalone or saga films. He's proven, Wookiees can live to be a long time.
I'll tell you, because there's something I have noticed, and I actually took a photo of this. I'm going to try to pull this up on my phone if I can find this. And I almost texted this to you, but you'll notice that here we go. I'm looking at a lunchbox that I snapped a picture of at Target. Mm-hmm. No, excuse me. This is a dinner plate. You know in the aisle at Target where they've got all of the birthday party supplies?
Right,
the plates and all that? Okay. Yeah. So this is a Star Wars The Last Jedi set of partyware, and this is the plate. And on the plate are Snoke, Kylo, Rey, Finn, Rose, Poe, BB-8, and Chewie.
He's the only one.
He's the only one. There's no Leia. There's no Luke. Obviously, there's no Han because this is Last Jedi. But to me, that speaks volumes.
No R2 and 3PO, though. No R2 and 3PO.
No R2, no 3PO. In fact, I took a photo of a tumbler cup that was Rey on the one side, and on the other side, the co-stars of Poe, Chewie, Rose, Finn, and BB-8. So it's very obvious to me that, and it should be obvious to anyone, and Mark Hamill himself said this is about passing the torch. That's really, that cast, that group of characters is the future of Star Wars. Those are the characters that are going to take the saga and, into the next generation.
If there's going to be episodes 10 through 12. Right. And we don't know. It's so up in the air now. We'll get to it here in just a few moments. What exactly is the future of Star Wars in cinema? What's the future of Star Wars on the small screen? We've got all kinds of rumors and, very little, if nothing has been confirmed outside of Episode 9. We know that that's happening. But we'll get all to that here in due course. But do want to remind you that this week's show is brought to you by our wonderful Patreon community.
Get full access to RFR only on Patreon. Become a member of the RFR Patreon community to get more Rebel Force Radio. Bonus shows and content are available right now only at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Exclusive programming like RFR Rush Hour. Join Jimmy and Jason on the ride home. RFR Rewind. Look back at some of the show's greatest moments. RFR Q&A featuring you as the show host, moderating the conversation for at least a full half hour. Plus, get full stereo high-fidelity episodes of the latest RFR, early access to RFR events, ringtones, exclusive updates, giveaways, and more. Become a member of the RFR Patreon community to get it all, and your contributions will help keep RFR alive for years to come. It all happens at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Don't wait. Visit Patreon today to get all access to RFR. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
Oh. And it has never been more important for you to support Rebel Force Radio through Patreon. And we're so glad that we're able to talk to you and talk to a dedicated group of Rebel Force Radio listeners through that platform. It's a great platform, a great way for you to support not just Rebel Force Radio, but other content creators out there, including RFR. And we appreciate that support. The fact of the matter is that, for the longest time, we've been ad-supported. We've had a lot of great sponsors and supporters. But recent events and, the sort of antagonistic culture that has sort of invaded and infested the Star Wars fan community has taken its toll. And frankly, Jim, I think you put it very well not that long ago when you said we're under attack.
Yeah.
We really are under attack by other Star Wars podcasts mainly.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Many Star Wars podcasters have teamed up to take down this podcast. And sure, we're outspoken, but we're honest. And we try to make sure that we're providing commentary and shows that are inclusive and accessible to everyone. We don't draw the line, but we do draw the line at honesty, and we try to be as straightforward with people as possible. Sometimes, especially in recent weeks, people have used that as an excuse to come after us. Like Jason said, many podcasters have teamed up to come against us, and they're going after our sponsors, our associates, our show guests, even some of our personal friends. And it's mean, spiteful, and hateful, and something we would never do back to anyone. And we're not asking for any repercussion, but what we are looking for is this is a great time for us to take a deep look at ourselves and say, who are we doing this show for? And we would like to put this program in a position where we can make it ad-free 100% of the time. But we definitely need your help, because there is a bottom line here that needs to be maintained. There are show costs and expenses, and what we're basically saying is we'd rather work for you than anyone else. And patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio is the place to go. And I'm putting a goal out there, if I can. If we got 600 patrons, we will be able to make this show absolutely ad-free. I will not even humor a conversation about selling time on this show if we can get 600 patrons at the Rebel Force Radio patron page. In that community, you'll find so much great bonus content. We have all those shows Wendy mentioned in the promo and more. We have crazy things like RFR After Dark featuring FJ DeSanto, unbeeped commentary. Some people say that's worth the price of admission alone. We offer all sort of rare tracks that we've collected and recorded ourselves over the years at various conventions and events. Rare looks into our archives, completely unique bonus content like RFR Q&A. Just recently we released one with RFR community member Matt Rashid. Matt's an actor, and he's a huge Star Wars fan, and we talk about all kind of stuff, most notably Luke's depiction in The Last Jedi. And all kind of fun things. RFR Rush Hour. We ride home with Jason on his way home from work. We try to make it, we put out a couple episodes a month. We try to make it as weekly as possible, but you never know what's going to come out of us in those shows. And all sort of great things. And it's a great community of people that's just growing in leaps and bounds and pushing us closer to our goal of making Rebel Force Radio 100% ad-free, and I'd like to get us there before the end of 2018. So
yeah, we're at 481 patrons right now. We'd like to get to 600, so we're close. We're close. So please, if you can, jump over to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. The link's over at rebelforceradio.com. And support the show, because I love what you said there. I would much rather work, and we do approach the show as if we do work for our listeners. And but at the end of the day, we've got to talk about the things that interest us, that inspire us, that hold our attention. And over the years, we've created and found an audience. You have found us, and we're kind of on the same page. So we think we've got still a lot to offer. And also, as Jimmy said, this is these are bullying tactics. These are
it's dirty. It's
dirty.
It's
right.
Intimidation stuff.
It is.
They're doing
it absolutely is.
They're doing this to try
like mob stuff.
They're doing this to try to get us to walk away from this show, and they think the best way to hurt us is by hitting us in our sponsors. I just think that's dirty, and it's not going to affect us. And you know what? If you want to play that way, then we just won't carry sponsors anymore, because we do this show for the audience of Star Wars fans who have been listening to us for a dozen years, and we're going to continue for a dozen more.
Yeah, so we appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for your support. That address is Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right. Well, this is kind of a crazy one, but it makes a little bit of sense. As we were talking about Patreon, we sort of brought this up on this week's episode of Rush Hour, and I finally found the actual link. This comes from theplaylist.net, and this is a story about the future of the Obi-Wan movie, and also brings up this idea of a Mos Eisley spinoff rumor, which is something that I don't know about you, Jim, but I with all of the conflicting reports, these movies are on hold, they're back on, they were never on. It runs the gamut. One of the things we might have missed is this talk of a Mos Eisley spin-off film, which I don't actually put a whole lot of credence to, because it seems a very odd play that they would just say, oh, you know what, let's do a spin-off on a location like that. I mean, certainly you might have a spin-off where the characters show back up, or show up at Mos Eisley. Yes. But to say, I mean, what is this, Cheers?
Yes.
It makes no sense to me at all.
I want this so badly. I'm like foaming at the mouth. I want this so badly. But like you, Jason, I think it's a total long shot. But let me tell you why I want it so badly. Number one, the Mos Eisley Cantina. Come on. That's one of the greatest moments in cinema history when they walk through those doors. No droids, they're not allowed here. And they look around, and it's just the crazy. One of the most creative things to come out of the cinema of the 70s is that cantina scene. And that's George Lucas, and that's Rick Baker, and that's all the great guys who worked in the crew on that sequence. Now, what would be so great about having that movie? Number one, the old expanded universe book, Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina. One of the best all-time expanded universe books. Really, it tells the story about all of those cantina denizens, from the Hammerhead to the Greedo to the Towels to the Bith. They're all included, and it's such a great book. And I remember just devouring that book when it came out in the 90s. Take it back even farther. The year's 1978. It's my birthday, and I open up a box from Marshall Field's department store, thinking it's going to be some stupid sweater or slacks, even worse. And I open it up, and it's the latest 8 Star Wars figures, the Cantina Wave, Greedo, Walrus Man, Hammerhead, and Snaggletooth. They were all in there, and it was the first time I ever saw them in my life, and I almost had a heart attack right there. I was 10 years old.
What, Mom put it in one of those shirt boxes?
Yes, and she knew what she was doing. Yeah, we were at a restaurant. Oh. We were at a restaurant, and she handed it to me, and I opened it up, and I was just like, oh, Marshall Fields. And sure enough, it was those figures in there. I'll never forget the rush of that moment. And she had the other 8 in there, too, which was a Power Droid, Death Star Droid, Luke X-Wing, and who's the last one of that wave that I'm forgetting? Oh, come on. Come on, Jay. Oh, R5-D4. R5-D4, yes.
Yeah,
so,
okay, yeah.
So I'll just never forget the thrill of those 3 moments. Seeing the cantina for the first time, and then collecting the trading cards and all that just to get another glimpse of them, and then getting those action figures, reading that Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina book. Also, the original West End Games books, the Star Wars source book that came out in the late 80s, really sort of told you about Hammerhead and him being an Ithorian and all that kind of stuff. It was just unbelievably mind-blowing. And so I would love to see a movie with cameos from the whole gang, from Greedo to Snaggletooth to the bar band to the guy with the spacesuit on, and who could forget Sideburns with the sideburns? Remember him?
Oh yeah, right. Sideburns with the
Sideburns.
The Sideburns. Yeah.
He's a very well-known character too, and.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they're going to do a Cantina movie, or if they're going to do a Mos Eisley movie, they got to get our buddy Tom Spina on that project, because there's very few people that know as much about that whole scene as Tom Spina. He's worked on some of the original costumes and helped restore and preserve some of that work, and in addition has done these great panels at Star Wars Celebrations, unlocking the secrets of the Mos Eisley Cantina. But it doesn't end there. So beyond that, beyond the fact that there was a rumored Cantina film in the mix of, if we kind of count, so we got an Obi-Wan, we've got a Boba Fett, there was a Jabba, there was a Darth Vader, there was a Lando. I think Kathleen Kennedy said at the Cannes Film Festival. Excuse me, the Cannes Film Festival.
Yes, get that right. Bo Sheck, by the way, Bo Sheck.
Bo Sheck was Sideburns.
Sideburns in the Cantina. Guy, he should get his own spinoff.
Isn't everybody getting their own spinoff? Mos Eisley is getting its own spinoff, or apparently. At any rate, the fact of the matter is, a lot of these have been rumored. None of them have been announced. But the fact is that these ideas didn't just, they just weren't invented by someone. There had to have been leaks. There had to have been some sort of source. All of these stories always talk about, a source familiar with the thinking at Lucasfilm. That was one of my favorites. But anyway, the playlist.net, what really struck me about this story was not about sort of the overlooked Mos Eisley spin-off film idea. It was about this. They say that they have heard, and granted, I'll quote, I found this to be fairly dubious at the time, was that the Obi-Wan film was going to be saved for Disney's upcoming unnamed subscription-based streaming service, the one that they hope to compete with Netflix. Now, Last Jedi is on Netflix right now, but we know that license and that agreement between Disney and Netflix is expiring soon because Disney wants to have its own streaming service with all of this content, and the huge catalog of films and TV shows will be available on this service. And why not follow a similar path to, say, CBS All Access or Amazon Prime or even Netflix, where you have some exclusive shows or movies or specials for these different platforms, these different entertainment providers. They're saying that maybe Obi-Wan would be something that they would hold back and push out there as an exclusive for people who are subscribers to this. There's also rumor that Stephen Daldry, who was the director attached to the film, basically turned it down or left the project, which is why it was never officially announced. It was the Hollywood Reporter that talked about Daldry being on the project, and there's speculation that he left the project just as quick as he came on, and that is why it was never brought out officially. But, Jim, obviously Disney is going to have to pull out all the stops in order to compete with Netflix, with Amazon Prime. They have the benefit of having content from a variety of different studios and different providers. Disney's version of Netflix is going to have to come up with something, I think, pretty big. Would a Star Wars spinoff or several Star Wars spinoffs be the answer to get people to subscribe to this service?
Oh, absolutely it would be. Absolutely it would be. I know a lot of people signed up for that CBS app after it was announced that Star Trek Discovery was going to land there. A lot of people did. I think Star Wars would have even a bigger ripple effect. And on top of it, you have the Disney name, and they're also going to load it up with a bunch of Marvel stuff and Pixar stuff. It's going to be over the top with content right out of the gate. But yes, to keep it competitive, they're going to have vibrant, ongoing productions happening. The Obi-Wan film, to me, is so puzzling because, of course, Lucasfilm wasn't developing an Obi-Wan Kenobi film until somebody asked Ewan McGregor in an interview if he'd ever be interested in coming back to the role. When he said yes, that sent people in the hallways at Lucasfilm scrambling. Hey, we got an idea! Sure. Wow, how'd that strike you? But, because the only thing they really had that had a certain level of production behind it, I think, was the Solo film. Because Kasdan was working on that prior to the sale to Disney to begin with. So there was already a lot of work done on that. The Boba Fett film, also, a lot of work done on that already. But when it came time to figure out what was coming after Episode 8, I think it was originally going to be the Boba Fett film, but that fell apart. So because they had the Solo pre-production and early script treatments together, they decided to go forward with that. In the meantime, that's when the Ewan McGregor stuff started happening.
I'd very much like to do one too. I think the story between Episode 3 and Episode 4, I think there's a story there. I think that's the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, if there is one. It's after sort of the one that bridges my Obi-Wan Kenobi and Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That got their attention. Hey, we can get Ewan. Oh my God, a Kenobi movie. That seems like such a good idea. Because a lot of people have been questioning online, was it a good idea to have a Solo movie come out before a Kenobi movie? Well, I mean, I think it's because of the level of progress being done on the Solo film to begin with, made it a more feasible option to slot in between episodes 8 and 9. Now, whether there was a necessity to slot any films between episodes 8 and 9 is totally debatable. And, a lot of people, including Mark Hamill himself, have recommended that the franchise slow down just a little bit. And I think as a result of the poor Solo box office, we are looking at that slowdown. Now, as far as the Mos Eisley spin-off movie goes, I think that could be a case of misread the prophecy may have been. Because that, to me, seems like something much more an obvious candidate for television, for a series, as opposed to a standalone film. I think you can get some mileage out of a Mos Eisley series. I would like to see a Star Wars anthology series where every season it's focused on a different corner of the universe. One season could be the Mos Eisley Cantina. Another season could be Cloud City, and so on. I think that would be really interesting and something that would be worthy of researching. And I think a Mos Eisley television series would be far more feasible than a spin-off film. So that could be, maybe streams are getting crossed here as far as the rumor leakage goes. But I think that a Mos Eisley spin-off movie is a long shot. Television series, I give it a maybe.
I agree. I think for something as large as that, with all the possibilities, that makes, I think, perfect sense for a television series, something episodic like that.
Mm-hmm. I still want that Cloud City Love Boat-esque spinoff, where different stars show up. You could have checking in one week. You could have Khloe Kardashian, Justin Bieber, and Charo.
Right, yeah.
And Charo.
Yeah, right.
Of course, Charo would be checking in regularly. And, of course, Laugh-In's Artie Johnson will be paying regular visits to Cloud City.
Right.
But
of course.
And Boshek.
Yeah. Right. Sideburns, yeah. So I don't think that, I should say, I think anything is possible. Where the smart money is, I can't imagine them really, really blowing the budget on something as big as a Star Wars cinematic feature just to beef up the subscriptions to the streaming service, when what they could probably do is tighten up the window in terms of a theatrical run and a home video run, perhaps give the streaming service some exclusivity as the film heads out of the theaters. Beyond that, I'm not seeing it. It would just be, I think, cost prohibitive. I don't know of anything that's been an exclusive for a streaming service that has had quite the budget of a major Star Wars film, particularly one starring Ewan McGregor. But
could we see a future of lower budget Star Wars films? Does it always have to be so big and grandiose?
I hope
all the special effects, or can we have a character study film that pushes aside the big special effects stages and just tells a story?
Yeah, it's possible, though I think unlikely.
Well, it does seem like Star Wars is the place to flex the technological muscle that Hollywood has to offer.
Yeah. I mean, George was really trying to value engineer a Star Wars television series there for a long time, and he just wasn't able. And this is a guy that owns so much of, he has obviously his own special effects house. He has his own sound design company, and he was trying to value engineer a Star Wars television series, and he just couldn't figure it out. He couldn't find out how to do it. He knew the technology needed to continue to evolve so that he could reach a place where he was able to do that and not spare any of the quality that he's known for, particularly in the special effects world. But anyway, I thought it was interesting. I don't know. I can say that I've never really read anything else at theplaylist.net, but they seem to be corroborating some of the reports that were being bandied about by other Star Wars websites, and this was the first time I had seen anyone mention a standalone film being held back as sort of a carrot for their streaming service. Speaking of carrots and holding back, we got a carrot top. Ron Howard, TMZ.
I was wondering where you're going with that one.
Yeah. Well, he's a ginger. He's got the red hair.
He is, yeah.
Anyway, so TMZ. Oh, great folks there at TMZ. They happened to spot Ron Howard, and I believe he was with his production partner. Is that Brian Grazer or Brian Grazen? Who's that?
Yeah, Brian Grazer. I don't recall. I don't recall seeing him in the video. There was a dude who got briefly glimpsed yelling something, and you'll hear him in the audio clip we're about ready to play. But he wasn't identified in the TMZ story. The cameraman from TMZ snagged Ron Howard in Beverly Hills just days, and this is how they wrote it on TMZ, just days after it was reported Disney was suspending all pre-planned Star Wars story movies because Solo failed to deliver the studio's desired box office numbers. So here he is, ambush interview on the rough and tumble streets of Beverly Hills.
Disney did announce that they are suspending all of the Star Wars spin-offs.
Right.
Do you think that's the right move?
I don't think it's a
get the tram in there. Get the Hollywood.
I don't think it's entirely accurate. I think that was reported, but I don't think that's exactly what I understand.
Oh, you don't think that's right?
Yeah, and I think the fans look. Everybody at Lucasfilm and Disney really cares about the fans.
Right.
And so I think it's an ongoing process of like discovering what it can be, and what it can all add up to. And so it's really it's a process. And I think I like the fact that personally that they take some chances, take some risks, and see how people respond to it.
That's Ron. He's such a class act. Great diplomat. He does correct the guy because the cameraman says Disney announced they are suspending future Star Wars standalone films. That's incorrect, and Ron corrected him on that and said that's not accurate.
Right.
And, he said it was reported. And the cameraman was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Why do the guys in Beverly Hills, the cameramen, they all have, like, thick Bronx accents? What's up with that? But, okay, wait, back to the story. Stay focused. Stay on target.
Yeah.
Something else I noticed. Lovely people in California, they see a cameraman on the street, so the guy just lays on his horn. Right, he's, like, right behind him. I'm going to ruin the audio in your interview, pal, because I'm having a bad day.
What, is that Opie? Here, lay on the horn.
Who's that, the nicest guy in Hollywood?
Right.
But Ron he's a diplomat, and he definitely, he doesn't say that he does, that he doesn't deny the report. But he denies what the guy says when he says that's not accurate, because the guy says Disney announced, and the cameraman was wrong there. He was very wrong. And so then the cameraman presses on and starts asking Ron questions about the Solo disappointment at the box office.
Oh, for you, does that kind of get under your skin, or do you just kind of take it like, hey, I did my best?
This movie did really well.
What?
This movie did really well for me.
It did well for you, right?
Yeah.
It did well for your bottom line.
I had a great experience, and exit polls were great.
Yeah.
And reaction was terrific among fans.
Sure.
And so, the economic side of it, was not what everybody was looking for.
Sure.
Again, a class act, a guy that's not looking to ruffle feathers. He's looking on the bright side. And I don't think that Ron Howard has anything at all to be embarrassed about, ashamed of, to feel bad about. I think he inherited perhaps a production that was in chaos, or came in and was thrust into this situation when you had two capable directors that were thrown out for perhaps a variety of reasons. It could be differences of opinion, just different working styles. It just seems very, very strange to me that these guys that were responsible for the 21 Jump Street, which was actually a big success. It actually even spawned a sequel, as well as the Lego movie. These are not just fly-by-night directors here. We're talking about guys that have been responsible for a couple of big hits.
Yeah, you forgot the biggest one, and my personal favorite. May I? Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
There you go.
Genius.
There you go.
Genius.
Yeah. I haven't seen that. I should probably check that out.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Tell me how Solo might have been.
Oh, your kids will love it. Pop that one in for them. That's a good one.
But the point being that Ron Howard has nothing to feel bad about. Okay, I don't believe this movie performed poorly, as I've said before, because people didn't like it, because they would have to see it. And we've got a story from Forbes coming up here in just a few minutes, and we'll kind of get into some of that. There's a lot of different theories. I definitely tend to think that this was probably a little bit more of I don't think a protest. I don't think a boycott. I think it was part sit out. I also think that the nature of the business has changed so much, and you have more competition for a movie like Solo, and you don't therefore get the repeat buying that has, let's face it, that's been a big part of the Star Wars pull at the ticket office, and why those films have maintained such a high record of is because people have to see these movies more than once. They go 2, 3, 4. How many times, Jim?
500. But you also know that here we are coming toward the end of June, and we'll be able to own the home video version of Solo in September, a mere few months away. I think that also, the quick turnaround to home video, I think also negates repeat trips to the theater. And I think it's starting to trickle down to Star Wars now. As opposed to...
It didn't seem to have that impact on Last Jedi. It didn't seem to have that impact in Rogue One.
No, I don't think The Last Jedi had the repeat viewings that previous Star Wars films had. I certainly don't think The Force Awakens had the value of repeat viewings. How you get to
almost $2 billion without that?
Well, everyone went to see it. It was just such a huge event. Yeah. Even my mom and their old lady friends, They went there dragging the oxygen tanks along with them. I mean, that's my mom's own words, not mine.
Right. Well, at any rate, it's great to hear from Ron Howard, and I think that, as you say, nicest guy in Hollywood. That's been his reputation. He's not going to speak ill of anyone. It's funny. He says, Lucasfilm really cares about the fans. They want to do good by the fans. I guess my question is, which fans? That's up to those of you to decide. Now, this was a piece that was written in The Guardian over at theguardian.com, And this goes on to talk about, the disappointment of the Solo box office and what it really means. And I wanted to pull this one because I thought that it did sort of articulate for me what the disappointment of the Solo film was, and that is, namely, that fans watching this movie in a decade's time will not be left marveling at its saving graces, the fabulous special effects of Linda Hunt's snake-like Lady Proxima, or the strong supporting cast, etc. Instead, they will be burdened with a sad reminder of what might have been. And that is sort of, my hang-up with Solo is that, unlike Rogue One, we were talking earlier, which is very, very self-contained, most, if not, all of the characters die. But still, with Solo, they left so many different threads bare that you could sort of take in different directions. And I don't think there's any even remote shot that they're looking at a second Solo film. I think Solo is officially a 4-letter word there in the hallowed halls of Disney.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think the potential was definitely there. And the thought process was, should this thing be a big success, let's roll it out into its own series.
Yeah, there's no reason there's no reason I don't believe that they thought that was going to happen. I just think that if they didn't believe that was going to happen, I think it would have been a different movie. And maybe that would have been better. Maybe that would have, if they would have taken more of a Rogue One approach where instead of going back so far in Han's life, they did show, maybe perhaps the last 6 months, the last year of his life leading up to when he meets Luke and Ben Kenobi and the droids in the cantina. I don't know. I mean, but they went into this thing thinking that there would be no problem and they would get sequels, and Alden Ehrenreich was out talking about how he signed up for 3 of these things. So it was all out there at that point. It was all out there. So no huge secrets, but at any rate, it looks very, very, very grim. And again, as this Guardian story talks about, the real tragedy is, what might have been with that first meeting with Jabba the Hutt, what might have happened with Darth Maul as he leads the Crimson Dawn, what might have happened with Kira. All kinds of questions left unanswered by that film. And for the first time, as Star Wars fans, we're left to understand that there's not going to be a sequel. There's not going to be a sequel.
Yeah, and the loose ends are kind of difficult to just let go. I certainly hope that there is going to be a plan B to get those stories somehow resolved and provide us a little payoff to it. As a matter of fact, I have some audio from Alden Ehrenreich himself. He appeared on Entertainment Tonight recently, and he was out promoting his new film, The Yellowbirds, which is a war drama set during the period of the Gulf War, and it looks rather interesting. And Alden talks about what he would like to see explored further if there were to be a Solo sequel.
I think all the relationships between me and Lando, between me and Kira, all those relationships are so dynamic and fun and interesting. I'd love to see how those play out.
He'd like to see how they play out.
Yeah.
We'd like to see how they play out. But unfortunately, I think we'll find all that out in maybe a book or something. I think the Darth Maul open-ended thread, I think that's something that requires further exploration. I really think it does. I don't think you could just drop that out there and never follow up on it. But if you follow up on that, you obviously have to follow up on Kira, which is another wide open story.
Yeah, you do. I think this is going to lay a lot of groundwork for future comics, future novels. I don't see it as being great fodder for a film, though. I would like to. And who knows the direction it was going to take? Was it going to be a direct sequel to Solo? Was it going to be a film focused on Lando and Solo pops in? Was it going to be a film focused on Crimson Dawn? And then you there's Han, or there's Kira along the way. I don't think any of us know for sure. Now, here's something. I thought was pretty interesting. This is from Forbes.com, that projecting what's going to happen with Episode 9. And they're saying that Star Wars 9, its big problem, won't be the Last Jedi backlash or the Solo failure. No, the biggest threat to Episode 9's final global gross isn't Star Wars fatigue, fan backlash, or any other potentially non-existent variables. It'll be the sheer amount of big movies opening in November, December of 2019. November alone will see Warner Brothers, Time Warner Inc.'s Wonder Woman, 1984, Paramount Viacom's Sonic the Hedgehog, Annapurna's James Bond 25, Paramount's Terminator reboot, Walt Disney's Frozen 2, and then December is going to have Star Wars 9, Fox's Death on the Nile, Universal's Wicked, which is based on the Broadway musical Wicked, and Sony's Jumanji 3, all likely, possibly, opening on or around Episode 9's December 20th release. Now, here's a question, Jim. The case that they're making here is that we're seeing unprecedented numbers of big films sort of dominating a weekend or two, and then they move on to something else. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, trying to slot all these films into the right place. Has the environment changed to such a degree since 2015 with the release of Force Awakens, or going back to the prequels in 95, 97, and 99, or the original trilogy? Has the dynamic changed that much for these theaters that it's impossible to get the numbers that we might have gotten just 3 years ago?
Well, it's interesting, because I think all of these big blockbusters that keep hitting all the time is a direct result of the fact that box office numbers have been relatively stagnant over the last several years. You have these big, huge blockbusters that spike up those numbers big time. My question is, Jason, why do these blockbusters all come out, it seems like, during just certain weekends of the year, holiday weekends, and key summertime launch dates? Shouldn't there be blockbusters spread out more throughout the year to offset it all, having a big log jam at the theater, and some good movies then not getting the audience it should get? I think that the filmmakers should work together a little bit more and have a more balanced release schedule throughout the whole year, and not just target those November and December dates, not just target the Memorial Day weekend or the 4th of July week or whatever they do. Whatever the most desirable weekends traditionally are. I think that would be healthier for the box office year to year on a whole.
Well, I can tell you, according to Jamal Carnett at The Motley Fool, he says that what gets lost in the Solo debate was that it was relatively well accepted by both critics and general audiences, with Rotten Tomatoes scores of 71 and 65% respectively, far from a bomb. Although it trails The Last Jedi, professional critics score 91%, it ranked higher than the audience score of 46%. But additionally, and this is where they get into this, Jim, additionally, studios tend not to release potential blockbusters in dump months. Dump months being January, February, August, and sometimes September, because of lower audience attendance. A surprising hit Black Panther was the obvious exception, but assuming a 2-week rotation and avoiding dump months, this affords all the studios 18 to 20 tentpole released opportunities. That is not very much.
Oh, that's not even half the year. So I think if they could just find a way to spread it out, and I don't know about you, but those winter months of January and February, those are the months I'm going to the movie theater because there's nothing else to do. You can't hang out outside.
But those are dump months. Nobody wants those months.
So I don't understand that. And Black Panther came out in February. That could change the scales now. I mean, just because you have a hit that drops in the middle of February, that might change the dump month status. Just like that. All you need is one success. And then you'll see other films being released in the middle of February.
At any rate, people still scratching their heads trying to figure this out. And, Jim, as you and I have said on the program many times, I don't think there's any one answer. I think it's a combination of things. And but at any rate, let's talk about this. So this was interesting. I have never heard of Grace Randolph in my life. But Grace Randolph has a YouTube channel, and she claims to have broken some pretty big news.
Mm-hmm. I watched this video, by the way, and like you, I am unfamiliar with Grace. She seems like someone who gets people fired up and talking. But like I said, I have no idea about her background or who she is. She hosts a show called Beyond the Trailer.
Yeah.
So, she's one of those, she's got a YouTube show and she's got inside information.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's what her information points to. I'm going to lay it all out here for you. So, sounds like within a week of the release of Solo, when the writing was on the wall that it was not going to perform up to expectations, there was a conference call with Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm and some of her supporters, and Bob Iger, and president and CEO of the Disney Corporation.
And heads from other divisions.
Yes, heads from other divisions like Pixar and Marvel. But apparently, and this is where she gets very detailed, they were all muted. They were there to listen, not to interject at the time, though we could probably assume that Bob Iger had a few questions for them. And Bob Iger at this conference call, and also, by the way, there were security guards outside the doors of everyone who was on the conference call to make sure nobody got in the room to hear the conference call, except, of course, the leaker who, their report has found their way to us. But at any rate, the guards are outside the doors. The conference call is going on. Bob Iger tells Kathleen Kennedy that she's no longer needed, that she is fired, and she needs to find a replacement. Why? Because Bob Iger has already offered it to several people, and they have all turned it down, including J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams was nearly given keys to the car, but is it as attractive as that car used to be? And JJ turned it down. And so Bob Iger's in a situation where, according to this report, that he knows he's got to replace Kathleen Kennedy, but yet he can't get anybody to accept the job because of the situation that they find themselves in, with a splintered fan base and antagonistic relations going on online, a lot of drama, and who's been in the leadership position all this time? It's Kathleen Kennedy. So, again, who knows? None of this is corroborated. Lucasfilm hasn't made any statements, though they've been asked for statements. We're hearing that there are indeed meetings going on out there at Lucasfilm. We're hearing that people are concerned, perhaps. But at the end of the day, this is not a decision about who you like, who you don't like. This is coming down, Jim, to a very much a business decision.
Well, of course. And Bob Iger is in the position he's in, and he makes the big money he makes because when the tough decisions need to be made, he makes them. Mm-hmm. So don't think that he's run that company for all these years without blood on his hands. I mean,
well, sure.
That's just part of the gig, you know.
It is. And, you know, when you lose, the estimates are anywhere between, $80 million. I've heard over $300 million when you consider that the film was essentially shot twice. They had a pretty big marketing budget. Though I'd like to know where they bought all that ad time. You know, I know they got Chewie at the basketball game, but didn't seem to get anywhere. Else, but
it was
all online. Everything's about watching the trailer online, and I just think with something as large as Star Wars that you need to really cut a very big path through the market, and you can't always assume that you've got the diehard fans that are going to come and see you no matter what.
When the Grace Randolph story broke, an anonymous industry insider reached out and said that they know that this meeting happened, and people freaked, and there's a lot of weirdness going on, and everything is on lockdown, and that's just what we heard from another source. Yeah. You know, like you said, Jason, it's all just business, and and that's what it's going to come down to. But there's obviously something broken in the machine, and it's unfortunate, but it can be fixed. It will be fixed, and for someone who's been appreciative of the content that has come out since the Disney acquisition, but still someone who notices the cracks in the armor, I wouldn't say I do not disagree with a little house cleaning. I think.
Yeah,
I think it's about time.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it's become almost a schizophrenic environment, and whether or not these are leaks that are being deliberately put out there, or if it's just writers or reporters run amok. There's got to be a way to clamp down on it. There's got to be a way to clamp down on it, and so that we're not wasting months and months and months filling the heads of the fans with nothing but doubt about the quality of the film and all of that. But
speaking of having a head full of doubt about the quality of a film, there's a new Mark.
Somebody say Mark Hamill.
There's a new Mark Hamill interview out there. This time with IGN.
Yeah, so Mark Hamill sat down with IGN. They tee up the story here at IGN, reminding us that Luke Skywalker is arguably the most famous fictional hero of all time. We're talking about decades of books and games, merchandise, films, all of that, to the point where he has almost become the very embodiment of the word hero for generations of fans. And so, when J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan sat down to write The Force Awakens, they, according to this story, they made a subversive, even cruel decision with Luke Skywalker. That yawning, decades-long gap tells us that the hero never got the things traditional stories tell us he should have been rewarded with, like getting the girl, building a family, and history doomed to repeat itself. That was not the fate of Luke Skywalker. Rian Johnson came in and decided that he would take that a step further, that Luke just isn't a victim of time in The Last Jedi. He's actively and sometimes aggressively rejecting his past, and by extension, he's practically pouring scorn on fans for idolizing him as a younger man. Do you think, Jim, that some of the dissatisfaction with The Last Jedi is that the fans are really reacting to the way Luke sees himself?
Yes, absolutely. For me, it wasn't so much of a problem because I've always seen Luke as being a very human character, despite his skills and abilities as a Jedi. But the fact is, I always felt like Luke had amazing courage, and I never dreamed that he would run away from something. And again, I'm hoping that the story will reveal that Luke was on that island for some reason, some purpose, some connection to the Force, some responsibility to the Force. And it wasn't because the Force told him to remove himself from the galactic conflict. Because I don't think Luke ever fully even said that. Because in the novel, Luke acknowledges that he believes the Force is making him have dreams that will eventually push him in a certain direction. And as it turns out, he's absolutely right. I mean, but he was trying to be resistant to all of that. But he still would occasionally, even though it took great skill and discipline for himself to cut himself off from the Force, he still could not escape it when he was asleep, and it sunk into his subconscious and made him have these dreams that he was certain were messages that were being conveyed to him via the Force. So he couldn't even completely remove himself from that. To me, that's so compelling. I would have loved to have some stuff like that in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But we've already caught up with Luke when he's fully committed to shutting himself off from both the Force and the galactic conflict and his responsibilities as a family member and a friend. And that is, when you analyze it that way, that's a tough pill to swallow. When you consider the 40 years of equity that has been put into the character of Luke Skywalker, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I lost my place here on this story. But Mark does remind us that there was an initial plan for Episode 8. And this is the first I've actually heard this, Jim. I don't know if you've heard this somewhere else before. But he's talking about the final scene of The Force Awakens, where you got Rey standing there, Luke looking at her as she's offering up the Skywalker lightsaber. And Mark said that J.J. Abrams said that this was going to be a show of Luke's now huge power.
Yes.
The quoting Mark Hamill, he says, J.J. said, "Oh, and by the way, I'll probably put in a couple of floating boulders to show the Force emanating from you as strong as it is." So, now, this is Mark saying, so I'm thinking for 8, I'm going to have Force lightning coming out of every orifice of my body. You know, lifting an eyebrow and toppling AT-ATs like dominoes. That would have been fun to be that powerful. Plus, I wouldn't have to do much. They would have to just teach me choreography to do lightsaber duels. I just have to, so let me take that again. They wouldn't have to teach me choreography or to do lightsaber duels. I just have to do this. Hamill points across the room, and then the special effects guy does everything. So, you know, we see that scene in Last Jedi where Rey is actually levitating all of those boulders. First thing that came to my mind. And so there was the idea that Luke was going to be seen at the end of The Force Awakens utilizing and wielding some of that Jedi power.
Right. Well, he certainly comes off as a wizard at the end when he turns around and removes the hood, and he has a very wizardly look about himself. And that's how I believe Mark played it. And I think JJ was considering doing that. I don't think he was lying to Mark. I have heard this story, too, about the floating boulders as a demonstration of Luke's force power, as if Rey approached him while he was deep in meditation, like he was on Dagobah when he first started floating rocks. But these would probably be bigger, more impressive boulders that he would be holding over the side of the cliff above the shore.
Yeah, right.
That's how I picture it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just gives the whole sequence a very mystical feel to it. But then the decision was made that Luke was not going to be accessing the Force in Episode 8, and that Episode 8 was going to pick up right after Episode 7 ended. So obviously the choice had to be made to remove any ideas of big boulders floating around Luke because he shut off from the Force. So some things were predetermined before The Force Awakens actually was completed as far as Episode 8 is considered, because also keep in mind, J.J. Abrams had intended for BB-8 to accompany Chewie and Rey to Ahch-To, but as a last-minute request from Rian Johnson to J.J. Abrams, he requested that R2 accompany the crew on the Falcon there.
Yeah, that's right.
And so...
And I'm glad he did, because I really do love that reunion between the two characters. It's one of those great, hits of nostalgia that the film offers.
An awesome callback to the original trilogy with the hologram of Leia. And I mean, it was just so great. Such a great moment. Of course, Luke is dour. He's a bummer. He's just an all-around bummer to be around. And even with R2, you get a little glint of light from Luke right there.
Yes.
In that sequence. Especially when he tells R2 to watch his language and everything.
Yeah.
But then he says, I wish I could explain to you. I can't go. And as an audience member, like, we are R2 at that moment. Like, what's your problem, man?
Yeah. What's wrong with you?
Why can't you come back? Explain yourself. And it never happens.
I get that little stun gun popping out of my R2, trying to light up his butt, see what's going on with this guy. What happened to you? Look at you. You're a mess. You haven't shaved in I don't know how long. Your hair's all grown out.
And if I could smell,
Howard Hughes?
If I could smell, I bet you stink. I bet you stink a lot.
I bet he did stink.
Like a wet bantha.
I bet he did stink. But getting back to this IGN interview, Mark does say, he says, remember, George had an overall arc. And if he didn't have all the details, he sort of had an overall feel for where the thing was going.
That's right.
Movies were going. He says, but this one is like a relay race. You run and hand the torch off to the next guy. He picks it up and goes. He says, Ryan didn't write what happens in 9. He was going to hand it off to originally Colin Trevorrow and now JJ. So this relay approach, which has been, one of my hot buttons for a while. I remember, Jim, when we were talking about The Force Awakens before The Last Jedi even came out, and we started hearing rumors that, we said, well, who are Rey's parents? Oh, I wish JJ would slip up in an interview, or I wish he would spill the beans. And we started hearing rumors, well, JJ doesn't know who Rey's parents are. Lawrence Kasdan doesn't know who Rey's parents are. That's all up to Rian Johnson. And that was when I started to really begin to have some doubts. And you can say, well, George Lucas made it up as he went along. Yeah, but George Lucas was one guy. It was still coming out of one brain. So in the case of, hand it off to the next guy and have him pick up the story. I mean, we used to do that in elementary school. You start to tell a story. You sit in a circle, and then the next person would build onto that story and tell it. And it was a fun exercise, but I don't know if blockbuster films are made that way. Certainly, Star Wars films. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting. Mark says that he says, I thought at the time when I was a teenager, by the time we get into power, there will be no more war, there will be no more racial discrimination, and pot will be legal. So I'm 1 for 3, he says. He says, when you think about it, my generation is a failure. The world is unquestionably worse now than it was. And that's Mark talking about how he sort of conjured up the ability to play this character that is, so close to him in this new way. And so here you got, Luke as they quote here, the horrified baby boomer making his retreat from a disappointing galaxy. And that, perhaps that is what brings his last decision into focus. Luke sends a force projection to distract Kylo Ren in the First Order assault, but it's not a facsimile. He's been de-aged. This isn't just the final swing of a dying hero, but a literal look at his past. So, you got Mark Hamill, the actor, who's saying that, he himself is having concerns about the failure of his generation to make the world as great a place as he thought that they would when he was younger, and he's using that as his ability to sort of catch on to how to play this Luke Skywalker 40 years after the fact.
Well, you have to tap into something.
Sure.
And as he says, he's not a method actor, but this time he really was able to dig into that because he couldn't find anything in the mythology of Luke Skywalker, especially the one he had established in his head, that was consistent with the left turn Rian Johnson took with the character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he had to kind of change his approach to acting because he had, like I said, so much invested into this character, so much equity that it's hard to just turn on a dime and go, oh, okay. So he has to dig into something. So he deals into the failure of the flower power generation.
Yeah.
But, that's really interesting. Fantastic insight into the mind of Mark Hamill and how he was able to wrap his head around Luke Skywalker. And I hope he's able to wrap his head around that character one last time in Episode 9 for something substantial, too. Not just a little brief cameo or a voiceover, something solid that we could really latch onto and get that Luke Skywalker that we have had all that equity poured into for 4 decades.
Yeah.
Something that makes sense at the end of the day.
All right. Finally, one of the ways that you just might be able to, cut the ice a little bit with some Star Wars fans is to fulfill this promise that Episode 9 is Princess Leia's story. I mean, that was the way it was originally intended. Each of the trio would have their big moment in the sun. Mm-hmm. And 9 was supposed to be Carrie's, but she's passed away. Since then, there's been lots of discussion. What do you do? Do you, recast the character? Do you kill the character off screen in the crawl? Good old-fashioned crawl kill. Or, do you maybe employ CGI? Mm-hmm. And a la the way she was portrayed in Rogue One, the way Grand Moff Tarkin, Peter Cushing was brought back to life. And there have been explosive reactions on all sides of this. There are those that don't want to see anything like this happen. But I wonder if it was done properly, if it was really done well, could it help to reunify fans? But the question is, would the family ever agree to have Carrie Fisher brought back to life through computer-generated magic?
Right.
Now, we do know that Kathleen Kennedy said that was never going to happen. But what if Kathleen Kennedy is no longer the president and CEO of Lucasfilm? So there's always a way. There's always a way out. Well, in his new memoir, My Girls, Todd Fisher, the brother of the late Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, he was being interviewed recently by Yahoo Entertainment, and this question came up about Carrie Fisher's likeness and what the family might agree to let the folks at Lucasfilm do.
Obviously, Lucasfilm and Disney, they own Carrie's likeness. George owned it forever. In fact, Carrie famously used to joke that every time she looks in the mirror, she has to send George a couple of bucks. Now Disney's got it, and what they do with it is up to them. I can tell you from my perspective, as the brother of Princess Leia, I would love it if they would carry on with Carrie. And I mean, how do you separate Princess Leia at this point from all of that? I mean, it is a foundation of the story. She is a pivotal character that the world has come to love. Technically, obviously, we live in a time where that could be done easily, where she could be brought in and out. I would love it.
There you go.
So here you go. You got the brother. I'm sure he would love the royalties too. Now that's probably unfair because I believe that Carrie's daughter, the beautiful Billie Lourd, would be the beneficiary of any such arrangement.
But I'll go to that ugly little dog of hers. Gary.
You think Gary? She left it all to Gary.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Gary Fisher. He'll get it all.
Gary.
Sure.
Oh, my gosh. How's he going to appreciate all that?
With lots and lots of milk bones, my friend.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so Todd Fisher is saying, hey, I'm all for it. That would be great. And he's not even talking about recasting. He's talking about actually, using Carrie's likeness, in a future film. Of course, you have to provide a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the likeness. I'm still a big fan on recasting. I think that I think they're crazy if they don't. I think they need to continue down the path that they were. They've already dealt with a lot of loss artificially. Now that you got a real one there, why not do it? But we'll see. I just believe that the character has to be larger than the actor or actress.
Well, we'll see. We'll see the direction on the franchise goes in, whether or not they're going to continue to expand the mythology of characters that have already been established, or if they're going to branch off new characters, new parts of the galaxy, new stories. We will see. But I'll tell you what, one guy you don't have to replicate via CGI in a future Star Wars film is old DJ himself, Benicio del Toro. And Benicio's out there hitting the red carpet promoting his latest film, Sicario, Day of the Soldado. Benicio del Toro was asked by Variety if he has any plans to return to either Sicario, this is the second Sicario film, and or the Star Wars universe.
Are you going to do a third Sicario, and are you going to do another Star Wars?
I have no answer for those, not because I'm withholding information, but there's nothing on my plate right now. But would I like to? Yes, sir.
So Benicio's open to coming back as DJ. I would like to see DJ return, quite honestly. I think there could be an interesting place for him as far as this big conflict as it all comes to a head, which I'm sure we're going to see. But, what's interesting about this interview is that what we just heard is actually the second take. There is an exclusive interview outtake that was made available to us here at Rebel Force Radio from Variety. And this is actually the first take, what Benicio originally responded to that question. This had to be put on the cutting room floor, and you'll hear why after we review this audio.
Are you going to do a third Sicario, and are you going to do another Star Wars?
Would I like to? Yes, sir.
Oh, he's already getting into he's doing the DJ warm-up there.
All you have to do is say Star Wars to him, and he starts with... Would
I like to? Yes, sir.